So good afternoon. Wonderful. I am Giovanni Singleton, Lunch Poems Coordinator, and thank you all for being here today. First, I'd like to invite you to sign up on our email list, which is located at the librarian's desk. We also have posters with this year's Complete Lunch Poems program, so do feel free to pick one of those up as well. And if you're on Facebook, log on and do become our friend. We'd love to see you there. Also, if you missed an event of ours, all our previous readings are posted within 3 weeks online at lunchpoems.berkeley.edu, as well as on YouTube. We have our own channel. Today's event is actually the last for the fall. We resume on February 2nd, when we will have Giovanni Singleton on Hey guys. Thank you, thank you. And on March 3rd, we will have Louise Gluck. So do come back and join us. In the meantime, if you'd like a bit of fiction in your life, please check out our sister program, Story Hour, today at 6 p.m. here in this room also, for Benjamin Bach Sierra. And now to introduce this afternoon's guest, please welcome Pulitzer Prize-winning poet, activist, and director of the Lunch Poem Series, Robert Hass.
Thank you. I haven't got introduced as an activist till lately. So thank you all for being here. I know this is a busy time of year, but you made a very good choice because Lyrae Van Clief-Stefanon is a stunning poet. She was born in Florida. She grew up in the Deep South and in a Pentecostal family. She went to Washington Lee University and did an MFA at Penn State with our own Cecil Giscombe. So this is has that feeling too. I once stood outside an acting class in New York waiting for a friend who was taking a class from a woman who had been in the class in which Marlon Brando and other actors did the first reading of Streetcar Named Desire, and I felt it was like a Buddhist transmission from one another. So we have this Buddhist transmission here from Cecil to Lyrae. I read her books earlier. I reread Black Swan on a flight from drizzly, foggy London to drizzly, foggy San Francisco, and it was humid and smelled of the Florida earth the whole way. The first thing about Black Swan is the incredible physical intensity of her writing, and there isn't quite a way to describe it, and it's a kind of I don't think it's a teachable gift. I recently did a course where you read Tolstoy, and you pick up any page of Tolstoy, and if there's a dog in it, the dog is alive. If there's a pine tree, you can smell the pine tree. Some writers can just do that, and Lyrae can do it. And Black Swan is an amazing and interesting book because it's a largely autobiographical book about a speaker who's growing up with a ferocious and deeply pious mother who's in a Pentecostal church in a world in which most of the male figures seem damaged and threatening to her and to women, and in which mythology and the possibilities of art and the possibilities that are inside the Pentecostal church, inside the possibility of inner light election, make a story of the making of an artist. And it's a first book in that way, a deeply moving autobiographical book with this special ferocity. Open Interval, which was published in 2009, is one of those, you read a first book and you like it, and then you pick up a second book and feel like you're in the presence of a different order of art altogether. This book has terrific force and intelligence. The first poem, which is called Bop the North Star, set in Auburn, New York, imagines Harriet Tubman in Auburn, New York, the woman who started and took most of the risks associated with the Underground Railroad. And then suddenly into it comes the voice of Rainier Rilke, the voice of an art hungry for transcendence. The university twinkles on the hill above my house. The fat moon rises and a girl holds out her arms. She twirls in a blue Polly Flinders dress. Mama's precious cameo, white woman's silhouette on black satin ribbon, choker tied around her neck. Poise begins here, in cinders, in rhyme, in splintering beauty into this and that. Right? You're in the presence of a terrific writer at this point. Beauty splintering into this and that. The image at my throat, the summer's pitching constellations, the 10 o'clock scholars, midnight lesson. And then, like a voice in Ital, yes, the springtime needed you. Many a star was waiting for your eyes only. I'm not going to say more about it. I'm going to get out of the way. She's a thrilling writer. Please welcome Lyrae Stefanon. Thank you, Stefanon.
Thank you all so much for coming out. You all have to bear with me. It's so nerve-wracking to read in front of your teachers. So, so I've got Cecil here, and then looking out directly in front of me, I have one of my former students here, and so it's kind of continuing all the way through. So since Bob started off by talking about Black Swan and the Pentecostalism there, I figured that I'd read some of those poems. But I also wanted to read them because there have been these articles that I've been reading comparing Penn State with Berkeley right now because of the things that have been going on. And, you know, I did my MFA at Penn State. And I feel like it's necessary, given the things that have been happening, to say I'm a survivor of rape and childhood sexual abuse because of people like Lucille Clifton, who would say I'm a survivor and they made it possible for me to survive. And so I wanted to put that out there. But I also think it's necessary for us to think about what we'll look at and what we choose to turn away from too often. So I'll start with a poem from Black Swan. This poem is called Magnificat. In the pulpit, in the swirling dust after the saints have sung, sweeping through the city, and in the front pews children danced, stomping towards the altar, their cadenced hoedown, holiest of double Dutch, Pentecostal. Pastor opens his mouth. How quietly Mary's speech falls past the neat square patch of hair beneath his lips. He that is mighty has done to me great things, and holy is his name. His belly pushes against the buttons of his three-piece suit's black vest, and I almost would believe in the quiet hum of come to Jesus, of every saint's sweet supplication. How many times would a girl hush the hop-skipped rhythm of pulse, lie back in sacrifice, take in salvation that she can't hold? Pastor opens like gardenia blossom every Sunday, so meekly. He has come this far by faith. Girl child, I lean into this offering. Get my lesson, make flesh word. This next poem is called 8. 8. Smiling, he says, "I know you like me, girl," and tries to coax me down onto the bed. He slides his middle finger round the edge of my blue shorts. I don't know if I should shoot a bird at him, shoot him dead. At 8, what I know is Mama keeps bullets in the bottom dresser drawer of this same room, but I have never seen the gun. He smirks. Don't even know what pussy is, do you? I know more than I want to know. I smile and draw him to the game of war my brothers fight with pillows against his sisters while our mothers off at prayer meeting for hours. Praise God, I've learned to call on other powers. Strip. A thin, brown-haired girl pouts high on stage. She cannot swing her slight body round the new pole. It runs floor to ceiling, piercing the strip club like a shaft of light, the way the voice of God appears in movies. Except this pole is plastic and God would gurgle because it's full of liquid like a lava lamp. The words would have to sploosh up through bubbles like burps, one at a time, like Jesus is love. Except the pole's sealed and there is no place for love to go. And there's no place for love to go, so the bubbles just keep going up and down, and the girl can't get her hands around it. She says she misses the jungle gym type bar this bubble bar replaced. She anticipates missing the smell of its metals on her hands after work. Training me, she instructs, don't touch your thighs, don't touch your knees. Keep both feet on the floor at all times. Don't do anything I do. She smiles at the way everything is against some law. I go on stage and the speakers spit out the first lines of the song I picked. I love myself. I want you to love me. I dance for a man, he's 50 at least, his wife beside him, but you're beautiful, she says, like a mother comforting a taunted child, like someone else's mother. Mine said, there is nothing you can't talk your way out of. The bar's dark and dollars scratch my skin. When the next song starts, I take off my bra, my breasts covered by Florida law with flesh brown tape. I wrap my arms, both legs, around the wide, bright pole, spin slowly down to the floor. Who else will pay for what he can't see? Like God, I've always been invisible. I'm going to switch to poems from Open Interval. I'll start with the poem Bob was actually reading from, a poem called Bop the North Star, and he made mention of, after all of her trips back and forth on the Underground Railroad, Harriet Tubman settled in a little town called Auburn, New York. And Auburn is about an hour north of where I live in Ithaca, New York. And there's a maximum security men's prison smack in the middle of that town. And I teach poetry workshops in that prison. And so I'm always struck by the fact that I have to drive past Harriet Tubman's house to get to this prison. Bop, the North Star, Auburn, New York. Polaris sits still in the sky, and if I knew which one it was, I could follow it all the way to Auburn. Oh, Harriet, who did not need the poise of freedom knocked into your head like sense, who found it more than possible to sleep, pistol shoved deep into your pocket along this route, I cannot tell a dipper from Orion. Yes, the springtime needed you. Many a star was waiting for your eyes only. The university twinkles on the hill above my house. The fat moon rises and a girl holds out her arms. She twirls in a blue Polly Flinders dress, Mama's precious cameo, a white woman's silhouette on black satin ribbon, choker tied around her neck. Poise begins here. In cinders, in rhyme, in splintering beauty into this and this. The image at my throat, the summer's pitching constellations, the 10 o'clock scholars' midnight lesson. Yes, the springtime needed you. Many a star was waiting for your eyes only. At the prison at Auburn, I cross the yard. Inmates' wet tongues against my body, cement sculpted, poised for hate, pitch, compliments like coins. Wade their silver slickening in the water, uncollected change. A guard asks, think they're beautiful? Just wait till they're out here stabbing each other. Oh, Harriet, the stars throw down shanks. Teach the sonnets a cell. Now try to escape. Yes, the springtime needed you. Many a star was waiting for your eyes only. I'm going to read a poem. Bob was talking about how I'm from the swamp of Florida, and somebody once said about Black Swan that wherever you are in that book, even if you're in the middle of Manhattan, you're in the swamp, because the swamp is so pervasive in my childhood. And I'm going to read a poem called Lost, and I always love to tell this story because I think it's so funny. My best friend and I, we grew up together from junior high on. We had decided when we were in junior high that we were going to live together when we were adults, and we did. And we got this house. It's an old converted fishing shack in the middle of the swamp and on an offshoot of the St. Johns River. And one night, after we had made dinner for my boyfriend at the time and his best friend, we decided to take our canoe and go up the river and see what was in the swamp. And we did this after dinner, and so the sun set while we were in the swamp, and so we got lost, and I think it's the closest to dying that I've ever come in my life. And I always like to tell the story because it makes me smile, because my mother just thought it was ridiculous that we were living out in the swamp in this old converted fishing shack, and she refused to come and see me. And then the one day that my mother relented and came to see me, it was the day after this had happened. And so we had been up all night, and when we finally got out of the swamp, we had stripped all of our clothes, and they were there in just this stinking heap in front of the house. And so my mother drives up to the house, and she sees this pile of clothes, and we're all lashed up, and she looks at us. She doesn't even come into the house. That was it. And then she was done. The first and last visit. This is Lost. The river, unrolled bolt of silk, gives evening the smell of fish, wet leaves, loosening matter. We glide through its blue plum tint toward night, the leftover tang of red wine in our mouths. Upstream, an idea waits for us. If we were lost, how much more would we love each other? We four move toward this losing with the steady creak and drip of our rowing. We cannot in lowering darkness tell direction, whether the frog's croak came from behind or before us. Our bellies full, the swamp beckons us behind its green drapery. Whatever hides in the tangle, the surprise of cypress knees, the fierce, sharp-edged palms welting our forearms as we walk blind through mottled nights, sulfur rot, and sucking mud. What flies into our mouths, impossible to see. Mosquitoes lighting in our ears, their constant whine, high-pitched and crazy-making. The silent patience of gators and our wary estimation of their hunger. We will keep, we are certain, as we lose ourselves for hours, when we find ourselves again bankside and two must choose to swim because we're not where we began. The river moves despite our stillness, our breath breathing itself into the wet heat. Whether they disappear for good, the two who splash away, their heavy kicking swallowed by this evening. I am of the two who wait, waist high in water, eyes stretched wide to see, nothing but night washing itself, black over black in muggy layers, inches from my face. Not my hands, skin of water, curve of meniscus, my breasts where I displace it, my undissolved legs immersed, merged with water, losing above, in, out of, but for these hands sliding over me, another's hands to keep me from becoming current tongue, lisp of leaf tips touching water, but for we too touching, agreeing, this is my body, agreeing I still belong in it. I'm going to read a couple of poems based on the Body Worlds exhibit. Has anybody seen those exhibits? Yeah, are they not just the creepiest thing you've ever seen in your life? For those who don't know, the Body Worlds exhibit it's these people, dead people. They call them plastinates because they've been shot through with plastic. Dead people with their skin off, posed in different ways, so you get to like kind of see the body and how it works. And there's been some controversy over who those folks are and how they get those bodies. Yes. So I thought that I would read a couple of those poems because I have this need to look at things that really creep me out. Speaking of what we will look at and what we turn away from, if I can find those poems, where are they in this book? Readings make me so nervous still. You'd think that after all of this time, it would be better. Well, thank you. I did my first reading, I think, when I was at Penn State with Cecil. I drank a lot of bourbon before that reading. Do you remember this?
That was the reading on your front porch.
On my front porch in Hauserville, and I was scared to read, and I just thought, well, bourbon will help that. And so I drank.
It did,
a lot of it. So I'm going to read Body Worlds 2 in case, and then I'm going to read Body Worlds 2 Ex-Lady. Body Worlds 2 in case. I am preparing myself, preparing to lose, race, I don't know what. I will do without it. This is the most unromantic way. I know how to get into the between, how to exceed, divorce, erasure, corpses, diligently labeled plastinate. Someone's skin in-laws, an exhibition sold out in advance. I haven't even seen it, and I'm freaked. I keep reeling Kennedy's skull flap, too pink, shot back, the reflexed hand to the throat. I'm sitting in my element at the edge of Cayuga Lake. It's spring. Why peel it back, away? Look, here at my beautiful foot. My windshield's clean. I rest my leg against the heating vents, my long brown foot foregrounded on the dash before the sky's excellent blue clear April. My silver painted pedicure. Why move beyond these slender, bark brown, silver-tipped toes? What's under my skin is ugly meat, sinew. Who is asking, and why ruin the view? Out the window, willows, branches, yellow going green, pushed left of their shadow-blacked trunks by wind, loose and graceful like the arms of ballerinas. Then the breeze stiffens, the skinny strands straighten, extend, like stick slim legs. Arabesque, on point. Look, no one wants the dead in toe shoes, but that's keeping it real, keeping even the empty body on display, the real threat of the exhibition, of seeing the one who's been posed holding his own split skin open like a flasher by its flayed edges. And then Body Worlds 2, Ex-Lady. Her name moves away from her as if without the body it could see the monster it is. Over there, hung up like desire, like art on the wall, a black-barred peep show called consent. A form has been filled out, but in whose hand? If the glove does not fit, you must forget that. Your own middle name's Nicole. I remember how hard it was to pull myself back in by degrees, quickly, like yanking up office blinds, like the sound that makes, accordioned, a ripple, like a countdown to blast off, like coming, but this is the violent opposite of that. Gender is monstrous. Her appellation, lady, but who wants to sing this song again? In from where I was, almost asleep, floating outside my body, but not even a German pseudo-scientist can find the space to which I returned. I turned a corner, and this is what I saw. So I think I'm going to just read a couple more. Do I have time for two more? Maybe I will read a couple of the R.R. Lyrae sonnets in this book. R.R. Lyrae stars. There are a lot of poems in this book based around my name, and R.R. Lyrae stars are pulsating variable stars. They brighten and dim as they expand and contract, and because they share a absolute luminosity, scientists can use them for calculating distances, and so I kind of use them running throughout this book to calculate a bunch of distances. So I'll do matter on page 43, if I can find it. I was getting divorced as I was writing this, so R.R. Lyrae matter. He still exists as flesh. It's the idea that's dissipated. Husband, what was he? But a word I loved, there is no panacea for missing syllables. His body, we all know what matter's mostly made of. Space obtains. One day I realized, I believe, the space in everything is God, that force of present absence, pen, expanse. I grieve old-fashioned distance, squinting it into view, between body and name. In here, I'm loose as love is, nebulous. What good, this pointillism, our eyes won't do. Sometimes the absences in us seem so profuse. I wonder we don't pass through wood. And then I'll close with this last R.R. Lyrae will. R.R. Lyrae will. When I am dead, I may not remember the mess of purple irises in the neighbor's garden, or the way I leaned against their fence to look at him. Lost to rot, the body and the soul, this is not the time nor the place. I will die when it's no longer possible for this body to show itself best. It makes me sad, the things I wanted, love's gorgeous force, a tight fat cloud of blue hydrangea. Someone coaxed the soil to color. The universe, cancer of the hallelujah. My name in his mouth, an arrogance of vapor, a star diminished, sucked down into paper. Thank you.
So again, thank you all for coming. There are books for sale at the table, and feel free to pick one up and talk to Lyrae. Thank you all for coming. See you in February.